It began on a peaceful morning, the kind of morning where sunlight touched Earth with a quiet promise. A promise that humanity still believed in hope, in peace, in helping those who suffered across the stars. For years humans had worked day and night to build machines that could clean poisoned water, ships that could fly through burning storms, and medicine that could heal the wounds of a dozen worlds. They did this not for advantage, not for power, but because humans believed kindness made the galaxy stronger. So when the Galactic Council sent out requests for aid to planets damaged by famine and hurricanes of alien origin, Earth responded with open hands. Terran rescue fleets departed with soft lights glowing on their hulls, carrying medicines, food, engineers, and volunteers who simply wanted to help. And on that morning, Earth sent one more message, a final voice of goodwill, a message recorded by a woman with silver hair and a gentle smile. She spoke not as a leader, but as a mother of humanity. To the worlds in pain, she said, "We stand with you. Our hands are open. Our ships are ready. You are not alone." Her words flowed across the galaxies like a warm wind. Every Terran station, every relief team, every worker felt proud. They believed that kindness would open hearts. They believed the Council would finally see humans not as a young species but as a partner. But when the message reached the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, it did not bring silence or gratitude or respect. It brought laughter, loud, echoing, mocking laughter that hit the walls like cold metal. The ambassadors of powerful species leaned back in their seats, their polished armor shining, their jeweled robes glittering. They exchanged smirks. They whispered insults. One of them, a tall creature with translucent skin, let out a sharp hiss and said, "Humans think charity makes them strong." Another tapped his claws on the desk and added, "They are soft, too emotional, too weak to survive true power." A third delegate, with eyes like glowing embers, waved a dismissive hand and said, "Earth gives too much. They will break themselves trying to help the galaxy. They are naive children." And the laughter grew louder. The Terran ambassador who stood inside the chamber heard every word. He kept his face calm, his hands steady, but inside he felt a deep cut, a cut sharper than any blade. He had spent his life defending the idea that kindness could shape a better future. But now he felt the weight of disrespect hanging heavy in the room. Even then he said nothing. Even then he believed patience mattered. Even then he hoped they would listen. But the Council was not finished. They showed their true face that day, a face of arrogance and silent cruelty. That same morning, a Terran relief ship named the Dawnfire entered Council-controlled space. The Dawnfire had only one mission: to save an alien colony that was burning under a wildfire storm. Smoke covered half the planet. Thousands were crying for help. The Dawnfire carried water machines, medical drones, and a full rescue team ready to risk their lives for strangers. As the ship approached the burning world, it activated its safety lights, sent peaceful signals, and transmitted rescue authorization codes used for 50 years. Every rule was followed, every protocol respected. And yet, as the Dawnfire crossed a quiet stretch of space, a sudden flash lit the darkness. A beam of red energy struck the ship directly. The hull cracked open like broken glass. Fire exploded from its engines. Thousands of alarms screamed. Inside the control room, the captain barely had time to shout before the consoles burst. The ship spun wildly, flames spreading through the corridors. A second blast hit the starboard wing, tearing through the rescue equipment. A third blast hit the medical bay. Within seconds, the Dawnfire became a burning comet, drifting helplessly toward the void. Terran rescue teams on nearby channels listened in horror as the ship sent its final message. "We were fired upon, unprovoked, engines gone. We are losing control. This is not a mistake. May our mission be remembered." And then the signal cut. Silence swallowed the channel. On Earth, the message reached a dark room inside Earth Command. Generals, scientists, diplomats, and analysts stared at the screen in disbelief. For 10 full seconds, no one moved. No one breathed. The room was frozen. Then a trembling technician reported that Council defense platforms had fired on the Dawnfire. Earth demanded an explanation. A message returned hours later. Just one line. It was a mistake. A mistake. A mistake that killed every medic on board. A mistake that destroyed the water machines meant to save a burning world. A mistake that silenced the hopes of thousands waiting for help. A mistake repeated 3 times. Earth felt something shifting inside them that day, something deep, something old. For the first time in human history, kindness cracked. The Terran ambassador stared at the wreckage report on his holoscreen and felt his heart tighten. This was not a mistake. This was not an accident. This was a message. A message from the Council that Earth's kindness meant nothing. A message that humans could be crushed without consequence. A message that the galaxy would laugh at their generosity, devour their compassion, and spit out their open hands. As reports spread across Earth, billions watched the images of the Dawnfire's broken hull. Families cried, volunteers screamed in anger, rescue workers clenched their fists. For decades humanity had believed in unity. They had believed in peace. But now they understood the truth. The Council saw kindness as weakness, compassion as foolishness, mercy as fragility. So humanity did something the Council never expected. They grew quiet. Not fearful quiet. Not uncertain quiet. A different kind. A deep, ancient, dangerous quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before storms. The kind of quiet that armies feel before engines ignite. The kind of quiet that galaxies should fear. World governments shut their doors. Terran fleets went offline. Diplomatic channels went dark. The entire human race seemed to hold its breath, as if listening to something ancient in the air. Something rising. Something waking. In a secure room beneath the Pacific Ocean, the leaders of Earth gathered. The room was silent except for one blinking red light, an alert for global decision protocol. Generals stood tall, their faces carved in stone. Scientists watched with cold focus. Engineers straightened their backs as if preparing for a long night. And at the head of the table sat the commander of Earth, a quiet man with tired eyes. He looked at the image of the Dawnfire burning in the void. He looked at the last message of the rescue team. He looked at the endless mockery of the Galactic Council. Humans had tried kindness. Humans had tried peace. Humans had tried patience. But the Council had chosen fire. And Earth would answer. With a calm voice that shook the room more than any explosion, the commander spoke. We offered friendship, he said, and they answered with weapons. We offered help, and they answered with laughter. We offered peace, and they answered with blood. He looked at every face around him. No more. And then he gave the order. Simple, quiet, final. Prepare the sky. Every Terran satellite received the command. Every hidden ship awakened. Every forgotten hangar lit up. Engines that had slept for years roared alive. Across the solar system, ancient stations came online with silent thunder. Mars lit up. The moon lit up. Neptune's dark shipyards lit up. Humanity did not shout. Humanity did not threaten. Humanity did not boast. They simply prepared. And the galaxy had no idea what storm was coming. The news of the Dawnfire's destruction spread across Earth like a silent wave, touching every home, every city, every heart, until the entire planet seemed to hold one shared breath. In hospitals, in schools, in factories, in farms, people stopped what they were doing and stared at the screens showing the broken rescue ship drifting through the void. Mothers held their children a little tighter. Old veterans clenched their fists with memories they thought they had buried. Engineers whispered curses under their breath. And young students who once dreamed of peace felt their hearts turn heavy. Humanity was not angry in a loud, chaotic way. They were angry the way deep oceans are angry. Quiet, cold, and unstoppable. Across the solar system, Terran colonies lowered their flags in silence. The families of the Dawnfire rescue crew stood outside in long lines, not crying loudly, but standing still, standing together, as if waiting for the world to take its first step into something new. And in that silence, the galaxy made its next mistake. While Earth was mourning, the Galactic Council released an official statement that played on every alien news network. The Council spoke with bored faces, calling the Dawnfire an unfortunate accident, blaming the humans for entering restricted airspace, and ending with a smug suggestion that Earth should focus on improving navigation accuracy. They said it like humans were clumsy children. They said it like the crew had not burned alive inside that ship. They said it like the loss meant nothing. And just when the galaxy thought they had humiliated humanity enough, something else happened. A popular alien broadcaster, a tall creature with 4 shimmering eyes, mocked Earth openly on live stream, laughing as he replayed the image of the burning Dawnfire again and again. "Humans cry too much," he said with a cruel grin. "Maybe they should stop pretending to be guardians of the galaxy. Weakness always ends in fire." Billions of aliens watched and laughed with him. Billions of humans watched too. But they did not laugh, did not scream, did not break. They simply grew quieter. Humanity, the species known for loud music, loud celebrations, loud hope, became silent. That silence was heavier than any roar. That silence was the sound of something ancient rising inside humanity, something the galaxy had forgotten. The human instinct to protect, the human instinct to endure, the human instinct to strike when cornered. In underground bunkers and hidden stations, hundreds of Terran admirals gathered in secret councils. They opened files the galaxy believed no longer existed, files marked with red seals, files containing ship designs banned for decades, technologies hidden behind false registries, weapons that could change the balance of power forever. Engineers who had once built peaceful rescue vessels now stood beside blueprints glowing with deadly brilliance. The oldest admiral, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes sharp as cold stars, looked at the plans with a heavy heart. "We built these," she whispered, "not because we wanted war, but because we feared a day like this." Another officer, younger but hardened, nodded slowly. "The council fired on healers," he said. "They laughed at our dead. That day has come." In the Pacific Command Room, Earth's commander stood alone for a moment, away from the screens, away from the officers, staring at a small photo pinned inside his jacket. His daughter, smiling, wearing a homemade paper star on her head. She had always believed in peace. She had always said kindness mattered. And for a moment, he felt the pain of everything the galaxy had taken. Then he closed the photo and placed it back. His voice was soft when he spoke to himself. "Forgive me. I tried." Meanwhile, on the streets of Earth, something extraordinary began happening. Millions of people, ordinary workers, students, old veterans, young mothers, engineers, doctors, began gathering in complete silence. No shouting, no signs, no anger poured into the air. Just millions of humans standing shoulder to shoulder in the world's largest silent vigil. They stood in New York. They stood in Karachi. They stood in London, Nairobi, Tokyo, Sydney, Sao Paulo. They stood beside rivers, on rooftops, inside stadiums, in the cold of the Arctic bases. Billions watched them through screens. No speeches were needed. No leaders were needed. Humanity had spoken with silence. And the message was clear: enough. On Mars, Terran Special Fleet Command activated the Leviathan Protocol, something even seasoned officers had never seen. Deep below the surface, locked behind miles of red rock, enormous steel doors began to open, releasing cold air that had been trapped for almost a century. Lights flickered on inside caverns that could fit cities. And in those caverns rested shapes the galaxy had forgotten. Shapes hidden from every scanner. Shapes so large they seemed like sleeping mountains. Terran warships, ancient, enormous, black as shadows, slowly awakened. In the outer rings of Neptune, stations disguised as mining hubs suddenly changed their light patterns. Workers who had believed they were repairing simple cargo ships stared in shock as the ships unfolded, revealing heavy armor plated with secret alloys, weapons never listed on any registry, engines capable of burning through void storms. One by one, hidden fleets across the solar system powered up, their engines glowing like the eyes of awakening giants. Humanity had never shown these ships to the galaxy. Humanity had never bragged about them. Humanity had built them quietly over decades, not for conquest, not for rule, but because humans always prepare for the day kindness is not enough. And that day had arrived. In the Galactic Council chamber, ambassadors laughed again as reports came in of human silence. "They're scared," one alien said with a grin. "They know they are alone. They will beg for protection soon," another added, tapping his claws with pride. But there was one delegate who did not laugh, an elderly ambassador from a small, peaceful species. He looked at the council with tired fear. "You do not understand humans," he whispered. But no one listened. He tried again. "When humans are loud, they are harmless. When they argue, they are forgiving. When they shout, they are still hopeful. But when they grow quiet..." The others rolled their eyes. "What of it?" an arrogant ambassador asked. The old one swallowed hard. "When humans grow quiet, run." Back on Earth, the commander stood before his officers. His voice was steady, but every word carried the weight of history. "We did not choose this path," he said, "but we will finish it." He raised his hand, and with a single motion, the sky of humanity shifted forever. Across the solar system, fleets launched in silence. Engines ignited with blue fire. Metal wings stretched across the void. Thousands of warships, old and new, rose from hidden places. Earth's sky darkened as giant silhouettes passed over the clouds. The ground trembled. The ocean stirred. Children looked up with wide eyes. Old veterans saluted through tears. Humanity did not roar. Humanity did not celebrate. Humanity simply prepared. And far away, the galaxy felt a cold shiver spreading through space, a shiver carrying a single truth. The storm was coming as the Terran fleets rose into the night sky like silent shadows. The galaxy continued mocking humanity, unaware of what was awakening in the darkness. Across alien worlds, news networks replayed edited clips of Earth's silent vigils, twisting them into jokes, calling humanity too emotional to lead, too weak to defend themselves, and a species that hides behind tears. Commentators laughed at the images of humans standing quietly with candles, not understanding that this silence was not weakness at all. This silence was the final breath before a wounded beast stopped holding back. On the Council's capital world, diplomats drank sweet wines and celebrated what they believed was the end of Earth's influence. They believed the humans were grieving, broken, humiliated. They believed Earth was shrinking into fear. Not a single one of them imagined that thousands of Terran warships were already aligning themselves like iron stars ready to reshape the galaxy. Yet as the laughter spread, something else happened. Small species across the galaxy began to worry. The ones who had once received Earth's medicine, Earth's water machines, Earth's rescue teams. They felt a strange fear growing in their hearts. They remembered humans arriving during famines with no conditions attached, building shelters during storms, risking their lives during drought seasons. They remembered human compassion, human sacrifice, human stubbornness to help even when no one asked them. And now they saw the death of the Dawnfire. They saw the Council's mockery. They saw the alien broadcasters laughing at human pain. And deep inside, they whispered to each other, "This is not good. Humans do not stay quiet for long." The first tremor of fear hit the Council when a patrol near the solar border detected something impossible. An engine signature old as the First War, a signature belonging to a class of ship humanity supposedly scrapped generations ago. The patrol captain tried to hail Earth. No answer. He tried to scan the object. No result. All he saw was a massive silhouette drifting like a mountain of steel through the dark. When his scanners caught a faint glimpse of the hull, his blood ran cold. The symbol of the Terran eagle, burned into the metal itself, glowed faintly through the frost. He sent one frantic message to the Council. "Something old is waking up," and then his ship went silent. No explosion, no alarm, no wreckage, just silence. The Council dismissed the report, calling it human theatrics. But far away, on a small refugee moon that Earth once saved from a collapsing star, the elders gathered their young around fires and told old stories, the stories of the Terran spirit. "Humans are strange," an elder whispered. "When they love fully. When they help, they give everything. But when they lose their patience, stars tremble." Meanwhile, Earth's fleets reached deep space staging points. There were no speeches, No heroic music, no dramatic announcements. Just mechanical hums, quiet breathing, and the steady rhythm of a species preparing for war not out of rage, but out of heartbreak. Inside the massive flagship Soul's Judgment, Admiral Rhea Carter walked through dim corridors where engineers worked with trembling hands. They were not afraid of war. They were afraid of failing the people who had trusted them. Rhea paused beside a young mechanic who was tightening a coolant line with shaking fingers. "You okay?" the Admiral asked softly. The mechanic swallowed. "My sister was on the Dawnfire," he whispered. "She wanted to save people." Rhea placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we fight for her," she said. "And for every life she tried to protect." The mechanic nodded, tears gathering in his eyes but his hands steadying with new fire. Moments like this were happening in every corridor of every ship. Terran mothers kissed their children's photos before stepping into armor. Old pilots touched the metal wings stitched onto their jackets, remembering friends who never returned from past battles. Quiet prayers echoed in small chapels built into ship hulls. Humanity was not preparing for conquest, it was preparing for justice. And it was this kind of preparation that made the galaxy tremble. Back on the Council world, the first Real crack appeared when a young aide entered the chamber, pale and shaking. "Ambassadors," he stammered. "You need to see this." The council members rolled their eyes but followed him to a large viewing screen. The image showed hundreds of lights rising from beneath the shadows of Neptune. At first they looked like stars, but then the lights grew brighter, larger, sharper. Engines. Thousands of engines. Giant ships emerging from the dark like steel titans. The chamber fell silent. "Is this a simulation?" one ambassador whispered. "No, sir," the aide replied. "This is live." For the first time in years, the council room fell into fear. "Contact Earth," an ambassador shouted. "Why are they mobilizing? This must be a threat," another cried. "They dare to intimidate us?" The old peaceful ambassador who had warned them earlier stepped forward slowly. "This is not intimidation," he said. "Humans do not intimidate." "Then what is this?" someone snapped. The old one looked at the screen with sadness. "This is a warning." But while the council panicked, Earth's commander stood inside the flagship Soul's Judgment, his face calm but carved with grief. He looked out at the vast formation of ships, dark giants stretching across the void, their engines burning like blue suns. A soft transmission arrived from Luna Base. A child's voice, a memorial message recorded by a school in honor of the Dawnfire crew. "Thank you for trying to save them," the little voice said. "We won't forget you." The commander closed his eyes, each word cutting into his heart. And when he opened them again, they were no longer the eyes of a grieving man. They were the eyes of a leader who had accepted the weight of history. "Set coordinates," he said softly. "Move the fleet." Across the formation, lights shifted. Engines flared brighter. Hulls vibrated with power. The storm was no longer coming. The storm had begun. And the galaxy, for the first time in generations, felt a cold truth settle into its bones. Humanity was done being kind. As the Terran Fleet moved through the dark sea of stars, the galaxy began to feel the weight of something it had never felt before. Human silence that carried purpose, human grief that carried fire, human heartbreak that carried the promise of retaliation. The engines of thousands of warships hummed like the heartbeat of a sleeping titan awakening after centuries of patience. Space around them trembled with a low growl, a vibration that traveled through the void like a warning from an ancient spirit. Humanity did not move fast. They moved with precision, with unity, with the cold steadiness of a species that had made a final decision from which there was no turning back. Inside the flagship Soul's Judgment, command halls were dim, filled with maps glowing in soft blue light. Officers reviewed enemy sectors with eyes full of pain and determination. Every room carried the same heavy energy. People not hungry for war, but driven by something deeper, something sacred. The belief that those who harm healers, those who mock kindness, those who burn rescue ships, must face justice. Meanwhile, across alien worlds, whispers spread like cold wind under a closed door. People who once laughed with the Council now felt a nervous heaviness in their stomachs. Reports leaked of Terran ships moving in quiet formation. Farmers on distant moons gasped as they saw shadows of giant vessels passing silently above their fields. A small boy in a forgotten colony pointed at the night sky, asking his mother why the stars looked like they were marching. No one understood what was coming. No one except the small nations who had once been saved by Earth. They recognized the signs. They remembered the stories. And they began locking their doors, closing their borders, and lighting candles for the humans who had once come to save them. In the council chamber, the ambassadors panicked like trapped animals. Their screens glowed with Terran Fleet footage, their voices cracking as they tried to spin lies to each other. "This is a bluff," one said, but even he did not believe himself. "Earth would not dare challenge us," another squeaked, though his hands shook. Only one voice cut through the chaos, the old peaceful ambassador who had warned them from the beginning. He stepped forward, leaning heavily on his cane, his face pale with fear. "Listen to me," he whispered. "You fired on a rescue ship, a ship carrying doctors, volunteers, and healers. You mocked their dead. You insulted their grief. You spat on their kindness. Humans endure more than any species I have ever known. But when they reach the edge, they do not scream." He pointed at the screen showing Terran formations. "This is what they do instead." But the arrogant council members refused to hear him. They ordered more broadcasts, more propaganda, more jokes aimed at humanity, believing that words could control a storm. Yet every insult thrown at Earth only pushed humanity further beyond the point of forgiveness. Back inside the Soul's Judgment, Admiral Rhea Carter stood before her crew. The lights flickered softly, painting steel shadows across her face. She had once believed in diplomacy. She had once trained forces for peacekeeping missions, not vengeance. But now she stood with a spine carved from sorrow. She looked at her officers one by one, seeing in their eyes the same pain she carried, the loss of friends, of hope, of innocence. "We did not start this," she said quietly, her voice steady but trembling with emotion. "But we will finish it, not for pride, not for power, but for those who died trying to save strangers." Her words struck deep. Engineers wiped tears from their eyes but continued working. Pilots tightened their gloves with renewed fire. Medics, once trained to heal, now prepared for the grim reality of war, their hands shaking not from fear but from the knowledge that they were stepping into a future none of them wanted. At the same moment, on Earth, a little girl stood on a balcony watching the sky pulse with faint blue flashes as ships passed overhead. She held a candle for the Dawnfire crew. Her grandmother, standing behind her, whispered an ancient Terran saying, "A gentle hand will never stay gentle forever." Far across space, the First Council war fleet attempted to intercept the Terran armada. They moved with arrogance, broadcasting warnings, laughter, and insults across open channels. "Turn back, humans," one alien captain sneered. "This is Council space. You do not command the galaxy," another mocked. "You barely command yourselves." But no Terran ship answered. No Terran officer wasted breath. They moved in silence, engines glowing like the eyes of something ancient and patient. And that silence unnerved the Council forces more than any threat could. The alien captains barked orders, trying to sound confident, but their voices cracked. When the Terran formation finally passed the interception line, every alien radar officer froze. The human ships were not just large. They were colossal, layered with armor that scanners couldn't penetrate, carrying weapons that didn't match any known registry. It felt like staring into the face of something built not for battle, but for ending battles. A junior alien officer whispered, "What are these ships?" His captain swallowed, unable to answer. On the bridge of Soul's Judgment, the commander watched the Council fleet hold their position. His officers looked at him, wondering if he would give the command to attack. But instead he said something unexpected. "Open a channel." A small gasp went through the bridge. When the communication line connected, the Council ships heard a voice they had never expected. Calm, quiet, tired, human. "We will pass," the commander said. Do not stand in our way. No threat, no shouting, no fury, just a fact spoken like a man holding the weight of billions on his shoulders. The alien captains stared at their screens, faces draining of color. They realized something dreadful. This was not a request. This was destiny moving forward. And destiny does not negotiate. Some tried to speak, to bark orders, to insult humans again. But they couldn't find their voices. For the first time in history, the Council fleet retreated. And when their ships moved aside, letting the human armada pass untouched, the galaxy felt the first true shiver of fear. Because that moment was not just a passage. It was a declaration. The age of human kindness had ended. The age of human justice had begun. And the Council had no idea what was coming next. As the Terran fleet pushed deeper into Council territory, the galaxy watched in a tension so heavy it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. For the first time in centuries, Council patrols did not mock, did not threaten, did not fire warning shots. They simply moved aside, shaken by the quiet force moving through the stars. The Council homeworld, a shining sphere of silver towers and glowing bridges, had never prepared for the possibility that humanity would come to them directly. Not as guests, not as allies, but as a storm. Their defenses activated in panic, alarms screaming through the sky like frightened animals. The main chambers filled with ambassadors shouting over each other, throwing accusations, blaming each other for provoking the humans, insisting the Dawnfire was just an unfortunate accident. But beneath all their excuses, every single one of them carried the same fear in their eyes, the fear that they had finally pushed humanity too far. Meanwhile, on the flagship Soul's Judgment, the commander stood in the center of the bridge, watching the growing shape of the Council world on the front screen. His officers waited in absolute silence. They were ready for battle, ready for sacrifice, ready to give their lives for the Dawnfire's fallen crew. And yet the commander had not given the order to fire a single shot. He simply stood, feeling the weight of every soul lost, every insult thrown, every moment humanity chose patience. A soft transmission pinged. It was from a Terran refugee colony far beyond the Council's reach. A message from children holding candles, whispering, "Bring them home." The commander closed his eyes, the words sinking deep into him. He was not leading a war born from anger. He was leading a justice born from heartbreak. As the Terran Armada entered orbit around the Council world, millions of aliens looked up in terror at the dark silhouettes blotting out their sun. Giant ships, silent, cold, massive, hung above the planet like judgment made of steel. Panic surged through the streets. Broadcast screens flickered with emergency alerts. Military leaders barked orders to activate planetary shields. But the shields flickered, cracked, and collapsed under the silent pressure of Terran jamming systems. Terran engineers had designed them decades ago. They knew exactly how to break them. Inside the Council chamber, ambassadors screamed at their commanders, demanding answers. Why are the shields failing? Why can't we detect their weapons? Why can't we lock onto their engines? The terrified defense minister spoke with a trembling voice. Because humans built half the systems we use, and the other half they improved. We let their engineers repair our network for 30 years. We trusted them. They know every weakness we have. The room fell into suffocating silence. And then, the Terran fleet opened communications. Every screen, every tower, every device across the Council world lit up with the image of the commander. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He did not smile. He looked like a father who had run out of ways to teach kindness to cruel children. His eyes were tired, heavy, human. His voice, calm but carrying the weight of billions, flowed across the planet. "You killed our healers," he said. "You mocked our dead. You laughed at our grief. And you called our kindness weakness." His gaze sharpened, not with anger, but with something colder, disappointment. "You thought we would bow. You thought we would break. You thought we would accept your lies and your excuses." He leaned slightly forward. "But you forgot who we are." His words echoed like thunder through every street, every home, every trembling heart. "When humans choose peace, we give everything. But when you destroy our mercy, the screen flickered as the camera widened, revealing the entire Terran armada behind him, thousands of warships forming a wall of silent steel. We show you what we were before peace. A hush fell on the entire planet. No one breathed. No one moved. The council chamber shook with fear as the commander continued. We are not here to conquer your world, he said. We are here for the truth. He held up a small metal shard, the remains of the Dawnfire's hull. You claim this was a mistake, so we offer you one chance. Only one. His voice dropped to a cold whisper that carried across oceans. Tell us who ordered the attack. Panic erupted instantly. Ambassadors shouted, pushing each other, pointing fingers, screaming for guards, denying responsibility. Chaos, fear, collapse. The commander watched them with eyes that had seen too much. If you do not speak, he warned, we will tear down every lie you built, piece by piece, until truth is all that remains. Across the planet, citizens stared at their screens in horror. They had never seen humans like this. They had seen Terran kindness. They had seen Terran mercy. But they had never seen Terran justice. And justice was far heavier. Deep beneath the council chambers, hidden behind sealed doors, a young officer trembled with guilt. He had heard the order before the Dawnfire was destroyed. He had seen the signatures. He knew who had done it, the council president himself. And now, as the Terran fleet covered the sky, as citizens screamed, as ambassadors panicked, the young officer made the one choice that would change the future of the galaxy. He stepped into the open, raised his shaking hands and said, I know the truth. His voice cracked. I saw the order. It was deliberate. Silence swept the chamber. Every ambassador froze. The president's face turned pale. The officer swallowed hard and spoke louder. The Dawnfire was not a mistake. It was an order. He wanted to show the galaxy humans could be killed without consequence. Gasps filled the chamber. The president stumbled back. You fool! You'll destroy us all. The officer looked at him with tears in his eyes. You already did. Above the planet, the Terran fleet waited. Not attacking. Not threatening. Just waiting for the truth they had demanded. And now they had it. The galaxy would never be the same. When the young officer's confession echoed across the council chamber, the entire planet seemed to freeze as if time itself were stunned by his words. The ambassadors stared at him with wide, horrified eyes, their arrogance draining from their bodies like blood from an open wound. The president, once the loudest voice mocking humanity, now trembled like a cornered animal. For years he had hidden behind power, behind political games, behind the arrogance of believing humans were soft enough to forgive anything. But now the sky above him was filled with thousands of Terran warships, silent, dark, waiting, and he understood, far too late, that there was no lie strong enough to survive that silence. The officer's voice trembled, but he continued, driven by a conscience that refused to die. I heard his command, he whispered, pointing at the president with shaking hands. He said the Terran relief ship was an inconvenience. He said destroying it would prove humans were too weak to matter in the galaxy. He said they would blame themselves. A soft gasp spread through the chamber. Some ambassadors stepped back from the president. Others covered their faces in shame. The council's perfect image, its polished chambers, its shimmering banners, its proud leaders, now looked rotten, corrupt, broken. And above them, the Terran commander watched. The confession was broadcast live on every screen across the planet, every tower, every home, every tiny alien settlement. No propaganda team could stop it. No censorship system could hide it. The truth rushed like a storm through the world. The citizens began to scream, not in anger at humanity, but in horror at their own leaders who had betrayed even the simplest idea of decency. Mothers pulled their children close, whispering, the humans were trying to help us, and our leaders killed them. Old veterans cried openly, realizing the council had chosen power over mercy. Merchants shut their shops. Students dropped their screens. Workers fell to their knees in the streets. Because now they understood, the humans had never been the enemy. The Council had. On the flagship Sol's judgment, a heavy silence took hold. Officers stared at the broadcast, jaws clenched, eyes burning with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Admiral Rhea Carter leaned forward, placing her hand on the console, feeling her chest tighten as she heard the officer speak. She had believed for years that the Council was corrupt, but she had hoped, just a little, that the Dawnfire had been a tragic accident. But hearing the truth felt like losing someone all over again. The commander closed his eyes. This was not victory. This was sorrow wrapped in justice. He took a long breath, letting the weight of the moment settle deep into his bones before speaking to his fleet. "Record this," he said softly. "The galaxy must remember that our healers died for nothing but arrogance." The officers nodded with grave respect. Back on the planet, panic erupted like wildfire. Ambassadors tried to run. Guards pushed each other aside. Some screamed for shuttles. Some fell to the ground, overwhelmed. The president shouted desperately, pointing at the officer. "He lies! He lies! Humans forged this signal. It's all a Terran trick." But no one believed him. The raw fear in his voice revealed the truth he tried to hide. Then something unexpected happened. Something that shook the Council world to its core. Citizens began pouring into the streets, demanding the president be handed over to humanity. They shouted, cried, and pushed against the gates of the Council palace. For the first time in history, the civilian population was not begging the Council for protection. They were begging to surrender the man responsible for provoking the wrath of Earth. The Council guards, overwhelmed and terrified, locked themselves inside the building, unsure whether to defend their leaders or hand them over. Inside the chamber, the young officer stood tall now, as if confessing had freed him from a lifetime of fear. "You wanted to show the galaxy that humans could be crushed," he said quietly to the president. "But instead you showed us why we needed them." The president collapsed into a chair, his hands covering his face. He had spent years mocking humans, calling them emotional, weak, insignificant. But now he shook like a leaf in a storm, because he knew what was coming next. A soft chime echoed in the chamber. A communication request. Terran frequency. The room fell into ice-cold silence as the screen activated and the image of the Terran commander filled the air like a final judgment. His expression was unreadable. Not smiling. Not furious. Just impossibly calm. "We have heard the truth," he said. "The Dawnfire was destroyed on purpose. This crew was murdered for political gain. And your Council mocked their deaths." His voice dropped, becoming the kind of quiet that makes galaxies kneel. "Now you will face the consequences." The chamber trembled. The president tried to speak, but only panic squeaks came out. "W8, humans, you must understand. This is complex. This is—" The commander cut him off with a single sentence that felt like a blade sliding across a throat. "You killed doctors." Every ambassador froze. Every citizen watching the broadcast felt their heart sink. "You killed medics," he continued, his voice softening only to become more terrifying. "You killed the people who came to save your burning world." He leaned forward slightly. "And you laughed while we buried them." The president fell to his knees. The commander did not even blink. "We are not here for war," he said. "We are here for justice." He lifted his hand. "Surrender the one who gave the order." The president screamed. "No, I am the Council. You cannot do this." But the citizens outside the chamber roared as one voice, a voice that shook the foundations of the capital. "Give him to the humans." Terran ships hovered above the planet like ancient gods, silent and watching. The Council guards looked at each other, fear twisting their faces. And in a moment that would mark the end of an era, they grabbed the president by his arms. He shrieked, kicked, begged, but they dragged him forward anyway. Not for Earth, not for revenge, but because even his own people could no longer protect him from the truth. The galaxy watched with wide eyes as the man who ordered the Dawnfire's destruction was pulled through the halls, kicking and screaming. And above them, the human fleet waited, not with hunger, not with rage, but with the quiet, terrible weight of justice long denied. Humanity had asked for the truth. Now humanity would take it. The council guards dragged the screaming president through the great silver halls, his pleas bouncing off the walls like the cries of a man who suddenly understood the meaning of consequences. The once proud leader who had mocked humans, who had laughed at their grief, who had sent the Dawnfire to its death, now clawed at doors, begged strangers, and kicked against the floor as if sheer terror could erase what he had done. But his own people stepped aside, refusing to touch him, refusing even to look at him. Some spat at him as he passed. Others covered their eyes, ashamed to have once believed in him. Mothers lifted their children away so they would not have to witness the weakness of the man who had claimed they would crush humanity easily. Outside the palace, millions of citizens pushed forward, shouting, crying, demanding that he be handed over. Not to the guards, not to another council, to the humans, because they knew only Earth still believed in true justice. In the sky above them, the Terran warships hovered like silent mountains, their engines burning a deep blue that cast light across the capital like a second dawn. They did not fire. They did not threaten. They simply watched from above, unblinking, like a judgment written in the stars. The sight alone was enough to make entire cities fall to their knees in fear and awe. On the flagship Sol's judgment, the commander stood at the viewing window watching the storm of movement below. His officers held steady, but many wiped their eyes as they saw the president dragged to the surface platform. They had waited so long for the truth. They had buried their friends. They had comforted the families of the Dawnfire's crew. And now, finally, the man responsible was being delivered to them, not by force, not by war, but by the hands of the very people he once ruled. Admiral Rhea Carter stepped beside the commander. Her voice was quiet, shaky with emotion. "Sir, this is the first time in history a council world has surrendered its own leader." The commander nodded, but his eyes were heavy with a sadness deeper than victory. "Justice," he whispered, "has a price for everyone." Down on the platform, the guards forced the president to his knees. His hands were bound, his eyes wild with panic. A Terran shuttle descended slowly, its engines humming like a heartbeat echoing through the plaza. Citizens watched with trembling breaths, some praying, some crying, all frozen as the ramp opened and a small group of Terran officers stepped out. They wore no weapons in hand, only the black uniforms of Earth, bearing the symbol of the eagle across their chests, glowing like a promise. The president screamed when he saw them approaching. "Please, please, I didn't mean for anyone to die," he sobbed desperately. It was supposed to be a scare tactic. They said the humans would retreat. They said no one would get hurt. His words only made the silence heavier. The Terran officers did not strike him, did not shout, did not even glare. They simply lifted him to his feet with calm, steady hands. The commander's voice echoed from the shuttle speaker, soft but cold as winter steel. "You killed people who came to help," he said. "You killed the ones who brought hope." The president emptied into tears, shaking so violently he could no longer stand without support. "Please, humanity, show mercy." The commander's voice did not rise. It did not tremble. "We are showing mercy," he said. "If we were not, your world would already be burning." The words hit the planet like a thunderclap. Citizens collapsed in relief, understanding how close they had come to destruction. Humanity had chosen restraint, and that restraint terrified the galaxy more than any weapon ever could. The Terran officers pulled the president into the shuttle. As they turned, something unexpected happened. The young officer, the one who had confessed, who had risked his life to speak the truth, stepped forward with trembling courage. A Terran lieutenant paused and looked at him. The young alien bowed his head deeply. "I am sorry," he whispered, "for what my leaders did, for what they tried to hide, for everything." The lieutenant placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said softly. The young officer looked up, tears filling his eyes. "Will humanity punish us too?" The lieutenant's voice held no anger. "Humanity punishes those who choose cruelty," she said, "not those who choose truth." The young officer broke down in tears, relief pouring through him like warm light after a long winter. The shuttle doors closed. Engines ignited, and slowly, the Terran ship rose into the air, carrying the man whose arrogance had nearly started a galactic war. Citizens watched as it drifted toward the giant Terran flagship, toward judgment. Inside the council chamber, ambassadors sat in stunned silence. None dared speak. None dared move. They had seen their future if they repeated their mistakes. On the flagship, the president was escorted through silent halls. Terran officers did not strike him, they did not need to. The weight of their quiet footsteps alone crushed him. When he was finally placed in a holding room, he collapsed on the floor, sobbing into his hands. The commander entered the room. No guards, no weapons, just him. The president looked up, shaking violently. Are you going to kill me?" The commander crouched in front of him, eyes filled not with rage, but with a tragic disappointment that struck deeper than any blade. "We are not executioners," the commander said. "We are humans." The president blinked through tears. "Then what will you do to me?" The commander's answer was soft. "You will face a trial, a real one, with evidence, with witnesses, with truth." The president's lips trembled. "And the punishment?" The commander stood up slowly. "Whatever the galaxy decides," he said. "Not what you deserve, what justice demands." As he turned to leave, the president whispered brokenly, "Why didn't you destroy us?" The commander paused, looking back with tired eyes that carried the weight of every human who ever believed in mercy. "Because mercy," he said, "is not weakness. It is who we are." And with those words, he left the room, sealing the door behind him as the Terran fleet prepared to deliver the truth to every corner of the galaxy. For the first time in history, humanity did not shout, did not threaten, did not destroy. They simply showed the galaxy what justice looked like. And the galaxy finally listened.